Get out of my kitchen, old man. You are done here. My son Derek slammed the stainless steel counter so hard the plates rattled. He ripped the apron off my shoulders and threw it on the floor right in front of the entire dinner staff. Every cook, every dishwasher, every server froze. 23 people watching a son humiliate his own father in the restaurant I built with my bare hands. You are embarrassing the brand, he hissed through his teeth. Your recipes are outdated. Your methods are slow. The health inspector laughed at your handwritten logs. Just go home, Dad. Sit in your chair, watch your game shows, and let the professionals handle this. His wife, Nicole, stood in the doorway of the office, with her arms crossed and a smirk painted across her face. She mouthed something to the sous chef beside her. Probably another joke about me. She had plenty of those. But what Derek did not know, what none of them knew, was that the kitchen he just threw me out of sat on a floor I still owned. The building he was standing in, every single one of the 6 locations across Tennessee, operated on leases that carried my name and my signature. I did not say a word. I picked up the apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. I looked at my granddaughter Lily through the pass-through window. She was sitting at the corner booth doing her homework, the same booth where I used to let Derek sit when he was her age. She looked up at me with those wide brown eyes, and I saw the fear in them. She had seen this before, too many times. I walked out the back door into the alley. The Memphis heat hit me like an open oven. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the smell of grease and garbage. Then I pulled out the phone I kept in my back pocket, not the old flip phone Derek thought was my only device. The smartphone I had bought 6 months ago when I started planning for this exact night. Hank picked up on the first ring. He always did. Hank Dawson had been my attorney for 31 years. Ever since I opened the first Harold Southern table with a $10,000 loan and a cast-iron skillet my mother gave me. Is it time? Hank asked. No small talk. No pleasantries. He knew what this call meant. It is time, I said. He kicked me out of my own kitchen tonight, in front of the whole staff. Good, Hank said. I could hear him already typing. That makes the footage even better. You got it on camera? Every second, I said. The security system he thinks he controls still backs up to my personal cloud. He never changed the root password because he never bothered to learn how it worked. Give me 48 hours, Hank said. I will have the lease terminations drafted, the franchise agreements voided, and the health department audit scheduled. And the other thing? I asked. The big one. Hank paused. The custody filing is ready. Judge Crawford owes me a fishing trip. But Harold, are you sure? Once we pull this trigger, there is no putting the pin back in the grenade. I thought about Lily sitting in that booth. I thought about the bruise I saw on her arm last Tuesday that Nicole said came from soccer practice. Lily does not play soccer. Pull it, I said. Pull everything. I hung up and started walking, not toward the parking lot where my old pickup truck sat. I walked past it. I walked 6 blocks to the Peabody Hotel where I had checked in that afternoon under the name Harold Jenkins. My real name is Harold Beckett. I built Harold's Southern table from nothing. 1 restaurant became 2. 2 became 6. 6 locations across Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. At our peak, we were serving 14,000 meals a week. Southern food made with love, made with patience, made with recipes my mother taught me when I was barely tall enough to reach the stove. 8 years ago, after my wife Ellen passed from cancer, I handed the business to Derek. He was 34. He was hungry. He told me he would honor the legacy. He told me he would keep the soul of the food alive. He cried when I gave him the keys. He promised me on his mother's grave. That promise lasted about 18 months. First, he changed the menu. He replaced my slow-smoked brisket with some sous vide nonsense a consultant told him was trendy. He threw out the cast-iron skillets and bought induction cooktops that cost more than my first car. He redesigned the restaurants to look like airport lounges. He dropped Southern Table from the name and rebranded everything as Derek's Kitchen. My name disappeared from the walls, from the menus, from the website. It was like I never existed. Then he moved me out of the house I had lived in for 30 years. He said the property was worth more as a rental. He put me in a one-bedroom apartment above the original Memphis location. The apartment had no air conditioning. In Memphis, in the summer, he said it built character. He cut my monthly allowance to $600. He took over my bank accounts, claiming power of attorney based on papers I signed when Ellen was dying. Papers I was too grief-stricken to read carefully. Nicole encouraged all of it. She was the architect. Derek was just the sledgehammer. She came from money, old Germantown money, and she looked at me like I was mud on her designer shoes. She once told Lily that Grandpa smells like a fryer because he never learned to do anything else with his life. Lily told me that. She told me, crying, that was 6 months ago. That was when I started planning. I did not plan out of anger. I planned out of love. I planned because a little girl with brown eyes needed someone to fight for her, and the two people who should have been protecting her were the ones she needed protection from. In my hotel room at the Peabody, I opened the laptop Hank had set up for me. It was loaded with everything: the lease agreements, the franchise documents, the financial records I had been quietly gathering through a forensic accountant named Davis, who owed me a favor from 20 years back, when I catered his daughter's wedding for free because he had just lost his job. Davis had found everything. Derek was bleeding the restaurants dry. He had taken out loans against all 6 locations using my properties as collateral without my knowledge. He had forged my signature on 3 separate bank documents. He was paying Nicole's brother Trent a consulting fee of $15,000 a month for doing absolutely nothing. And worst of all, he had drained the college fund I had set up for Lily. $47,000. Gone. Spent on a boat that was currently docked at Pickwick Landing. A boat Derek told me was a company expense for team-building retreats. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Then I looked at the framed picture I had brought with me. It was a photo of Lily and me at the Tennessee State Fair 2 years ago. She was holding a blue ribbon for her peach cobbler. She had made it using my mother's recipe. The same recipe Derek had removed from the menu because he said it was too simple. Too simple. My mother fed a family of 7 on that recipe during years when simple was all we had. I closed the laptop. I set my alarm for 5 in the morning. Then I did something I had not done in a long time. I slept well. The next morning I was standing in the lobby of First Tennessee Bank when the doors opened at 9. I had an appointment with the branch manager, a woman named Patricia whom I had known for 20 years. She looked nervous when she saw me. She knew what was coming. "Harold," she said, shaking my hand. "I reviewed the documents you sent. Are you certain about this?" "Every cent," I said. She nodded and led me to her office. By 9:45, the operating accounts for all 6 restaurants had been frozen. The business lines of credit were suspended. The payroll account was locked pending a fraud investigation that Davis had filed with the state attorney general the previous afternoon. I imagined Derek arriving at the Memphis location around 10, the way he always did, late, carrying a coffee from the expensive place downtown because he refused to drink the coffee we brewed in the restaurant. He would walk in expecting the world to bend to him. Instead, the world would be standing still. His general manager would tell him that the food delivery trucks had not come. The suppliers had been notified by Hank that the payment guarantees were void. No deliveries until new terms were established with the actual property owner. Me. His phone would ring. It would be the bank. It would be the landlord of the Nashville location, whom I had called personally the night before. It would be the health department, which was sending an inspector at 11, based on an anonymous tip about rodent activity in the Knoxville kitchen, a tip that happened to be true because Derek had fired the exterminator 3 months ago to save money. Everything he thought was solid would turn to sand between his fingers. And then he would call me. He would call the old flip phone, the one he thought was my lifeline. But I had left that phone on the kitchen counter of my apartment, right next to a note. The note said one thing: "You told me to get out of my kitchen, so I got out of yours." I checked my watch. It was 10:15. Right about now. The dominoes were falling, but I was not watching from a distance like some cold-blooded general. I had somewhere more important to be. I drove to Lily's school. Hank had filed the emergency custody petition at 8 that morning. Judge Crawford had signed it by 8:45. I had the paperwork in my hand. The principal, a kind woman named Mrs. Alvarez, met me at the office. She looked at the court order. She looked at me. She had seen the bruises, too. We had spoken quietly about it twice before, both times ending with her saying she wished she could do more. Now she could. Lily was in her third-grade classroom when Mrs. Alvarez brought her to the office. She saw me and her face lit up, then it clouded with confusion. "Grandpa," she said, "why are you here? Is it a half day?" I knelt down. My knees cracked and my back ached, but I did not care. "Lily," I said, "you are going to come stay with me for a while. Is that okay?" She looked at Mrs. Alvarez. She looked at me. Her bottom lip trembled. "Are Daddy and Mommy okay?" "They are going to be fine," I said. "But Grandpa has a new house now, a real house with a yard and a porch. And there is a kitchen where you and I are going to make your great-grandma's peach cobbler every Sunday. Do you want that?" She threw her arms around my neck. She held on so tight I could barely breathe. I carried her to the truck. I buckled her in. I drove away from that school and I did not look back. By noon, Derek had figured out that the banks were frozen. By 1 o'clock, he knew the leases were being terminated. By 2, he was standing outside my apartment, pounding on the door that I was no longer behind. By 3, he had driven to Hank's office and been escorted out by security after he tried to flip a table in the lobby. And by 4 o'clock, he finally thought to check on his daughter. He drove to the school. Mrs. Alvarez handed him a copy of the custody order. I am told he read it 3 times. I am told he sat down on the bench outside the principal's office and did not move for 20 minutes. Then he called Nicole. Nicole did not answer. Nicole was at that moment in the Nashville airport, trying to board a flight to Miami. She had a suitcase packed with jewelry and 3 credit cards that she was about to discover were all canceled. I know this because Hank had someone watching her. Nicole was not going to Miami for vacation. She was going to meet a man named Javier, a real estate developer she had been seeing for at least 2 years. She had been funneling money from the restaurant accounts into a private account to fund her exit strategy, the same way a rat builds a nest before the ship sinks. But I had found the nest. Davis traced the transfers. Hank froze the account. When Nicole's card was declined at the ticket counter, she threw her phone at the kiosk screen. TSA detained her for causing a disturbance. She spent the night in an airport holding room explaining to a very patient officer why she should not be arrested for destruction of property. Meanwhile, Derek was driving around Memphis like a madman. He went to every restaurant. Every door was locked. Every location had a notice posted on the front window. Closed for renovation by order of the property owner. He called me 47 times. I know because I checked the voicemail log later. The messages started angry. "You think this is funny, old man? You think you can take my restaurants? I built this brand. Me, not you. You were just a cook." Then they got desperate. "Dad, please. I know I messed up." I was stressed. The business was struggling. I should not have said those things. Let me explain. Then they got threatening. "I am calling my lawyer. I am calling the police. You kidnapped my daughter. You stole my money. You are going to prison, Dad. I am going to make sure you rot." Then, around midnight, the last message came. It was quiet. His voice was hoarse. "Dad, I do not know where to sleep tonight. Nicole is gone. The house is locked. The credit cards do not work. I have $40 in my wallet. I do not understand what is happening. Can you please just call me back?" I listened to that message sitting on the porch of the farmhouse I had purchased 3 months earlier. It was a quiet place outside Collierville. 20 acres of green land with a creek running through the back. I had bought it with cash from an account Derek never knew about. An account I had opened in 1986 with the first profit from the first restaurant. I never touched it. I let it grow for almost 40 years. It was my insurance, my doomsday fund. Lily was asleep upstairs in a bedroom. I had painted lavender because it was her favorite color. There was a bookshelf full of books. There was a stuffed rabbit on the pillow. There was a nightlight shaped like a star. I had spent weeks preparing this room. Every detail was for her. I listened to Derek's message one more time, then I deleted it. The next morning, Derek showed up at Hank's office. This time, he did not flip tables. He sat in the waiting room for 2 hours until Hank agreed to see him. I was not there, but Hank recorded the conversation. I have listened to it many times since. Derek sat across from Hank's desk, wearing the same clothes from the day before. He had slept in his car. He looked broken. "What does he want?" Derek asked. Hank opened a folder. "He wants accountability," Hank said. "He wants you to face the consequences of your actions." "What consequences?" "I ran his restaurants. I made them profitable." Hank slid a sheet of paper across the desk. "You ran 6 restaurants into a combined debt of $2.3 million. You forged your father's signature on loan documents. You drained your daughter's college fund. You paid your wife's brother $180,000 over 12 months for services never rendered. You misrepresented company finances to the IRS. And based on the forensic audit, you owe your father approximately $1.7 million in misappropriated funds." Derek stared at the paper. He started to speak, then stopped, then started again. "But the restaurants were making money." "Were they?" Hank asked. "Or were you borrowing from the future to pay for the present?" "You spent $60,000 on a boat, Derek. You listed it as a marketing expense. You bought your wife a Mercedes and wrote it off as a company vehicle. Your father ate canned soup in an apartment with no air conditioning while you dined at steakhouses 5 nights a week." "I built that brand," Derek whispered. "Your father built that brand," Hank corrected him. "He built it over 30 years. You inherited it and burned through it in 8. There is a difference between building and spending, son. And your father knows the difference better than anyone alive." Derek put his head in his hands. "Where is my daughter?" "She is safe," Hank said. "She is with the only person who has ever consistently put her well-being first." "The court agrees." Derek looked up. His eyes were red. "I want to see her." "That is not up to me," Hank said. "Your father has been granted temporary emergency custody. If you want visitation, you will need to petition the court. And given the pending criminal referral for fraud and forgery, I would suggest you retain a very good attorney." "Criminal referral?" Derek's voice cracked. "This is between me and my dad. This is a family thing." Hank closed the folder. "It stopped being a family thing when you forged his signature. That is a felony in Tennessee." Derek left the office. He did not scream. He did not threaten. He walked out like a man who had just been told he had 6 months to live. 2 weeks passed. Derek was arraigned on 3 counts of forgery and 1 count of fraud. He posted bail, using the title to the boat, the only asset that was technically in his name. Nicole came back from her airport adventure and immediately filed for divorce. She did not fight for custody of Lily. She fought for the house, which she did not realize was also held in a trust controlled by me. Her attorney informed her of this on a Tuesday. She moved to Miami the following Friday. She did not say goodbye to Lily. She sent a text. "Mommy has to go away for a while. Baby, be good for Grandpa." Lily showed me the text. She did not cry. She just looked at me and said, "Grandpa, is Mommy coming back?" "I do not know, sweetheart," I said, "but I am not going anywhere." She nodded. Then she asked if we could make biscuits. We made biscuits. We made them the way my mother taught me, with cold butter and buttermilk and hands that were not afraid to get messy. Lily rolled the dough. She cut the circles. She put them on the baking sheet with the kind of care that told me everything I needed to know about who this child was going to become. While the biscuits baked, I got a call from Hank. Derek's lawyer was requesting a meeting. Not a legal proceeding. A meeting. Father and son. Derek wanted to talk. I said yes. We met at a diner on Poplar Avenue. It was neutral ground. Hank waited in the car. A bodyguard I had hired sat at the counter pretending to read a newspaper. Derek was already in the booth when I arrived. He looked like he had aged 10 years. His hair was unwashed. His hands were trembling around a cup of coffee. He did not look up when I sat down. I waited. I had learned a long time ago that silence is the most powerful tool in any negotiation. "You planned this," he finally said. His voice was flat. "You planned all of it. The leases, the accounts, The custody. You knew exactly what you were going to do. I planned for the possibility, I said. I hoped I would never have to use it. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. Why? Because 8 months ago, I said. I picked Lily up from school, and she had a bruise on her upper arm shaped like a handprint. She told me Mommy grabbed her because she spilled juice on the carpet. And when I asked you about it, you told me kids bruise easy, and I should mind my own business. Derek flinched. That was the moment, I continued. That was when I knew I could not wait any longer. I had tolerated you taking my name off the walls. I had tolerated you changing my recipes. I had tolerated living in that apartment like a forgotten piece of furniture. But when you let someone hurt that little girl and told me to mind my own business, you showed me exactly who you had become. And it was not the boy I raised. Derek wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I did not know Nicole was doing that, he said. You did not want to know, I said. There is a difference. He stared at his coffee. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something that made my breath catch. It was a recipe card. Yellowed, stained with grease, written in my mother's handwriting. Mama's peach cobbler. The original card. The one I thought Derek had thrown away when he gutted the old kitchen. I found it, he said, his voice breaking. It was in the back of a drawer at the Memphis location, behind a stack of invoices. I kept it. I do not know why. I kept it. I looked at that card. I looked at my mother's handwriting, the way she wrote her S's like number 5s, the way she underlined important steps twice. Use cold peaches, Harold. Never canned. Never shortcuts. I reached across the table and took the card. I held it like it was made of glass. This recipe fed our family for 40 years, I said. It is worth more than every restaurant, every dollar, every deal you ever made, because it was made with love. And love is the only currency that appreciates over time. Derek broke down. He put his forehead on the table and sobbed. I am sorry, Dad, he choked out. I am so sorry. I sat there and watched my son cry. I did not reach across the table. I did not comfort him. Not because I did not love him, but because some pain needs to be felt completely before healing can begin. When he finally lifted his head, I spoke. You are going to face the charges, I said. I am not dropping them. You forged my name. That has consequences. You are going to sell the boat. You are going to pay back what you stole from Lily's college fund, every penny. And you are going to get help, Derek. Real help. Therapy. Anger management. Whatever it takes. He nodded. And Lily? She stays with me, I said. For now. Maybe for a long time. She needs stability. She needs someone who puts her first. When you can prove that you are that person, truly prove it. Not with words, but with years of action. Then we will talk about the future. He wiped his face. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about it. I thought about Ellen, about my mother, about the 30 years I spent building something beautiful, and the 8 years I watched it crumble. I forgave you the day you were born, I said. But trust is different from forgiveness. Trust is rebuilt one brick at a time, and you have a lot of bricks to lay. I stood up. I left money on the table for both coffees. Then I walked out into the Memphis sun. Hank was leaning against the car. How did it go? He asked. I held up the recipe card. I got what I came for, I said. That evening, Lily and I stood in the kitchen of the farmhouse. The windows were open. The creek was making its quiet sound in the distance. Fireflies were beginning to light up the backfield. I set the recipe card on the counter where Lily could see it. She read it slowly, moving her finger under each word. Grandpa, she said. Great-grandma wrote this? She did, I said. A long time ago. And now it is yours. Lily looked at me with those brown eyes. Will you teach me? I smiled. I reached into the cabinet and pulled out the cast-iron skillet, the same one my mother gave me, the same one I had smuggled out of the Memphis kitchen before Derek locked the doors. I set it on the stove. I tied an apron around Lily's waist. I handed her a peach. Start peeling, I said, and do not rush it. The best things in life are never rushed. She peeled that peach with the careful hands of someone who understood that she was holding something precious. The kitchen filled with the smell of butter and brown sugar and cinnamon. It smelled like every good memory I had ever made. It smelled like home. 6 months later, I reopened the original Memphis location. I brought back the old name, Harold's Southern Table. I hung my mother's recipe card in a frame by the front door. I put the cast iron skillets back on the stove. I hired back every cook Derek had fired. And on opening night, the first person through the door was a little girl in a lavender dress holding a blue ribbon she had won at the county fair for her peach cobbler. She walked straight to the corner booth, the same booth where her father used to sit, the same booth where she used to do her homework. She climbed up on the seat and opened her math book. I stood behind the pass-through window and watched her. My eyes were blurry, but my heart was clear. I had lost a son to greed, but I had saved a granddaughter from becoming its next victim. I had built an empire once with flour and fire and faith. Now I was building something better. I was building a legacy that could not be measured in dollars or locations or reviews. It was measured in the careful hands of an 8-year-old girl peeling a peach in a kitchen that smelled like love. If you believe that family is not about blood or money, but about showing up every single day for the people who need you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to make a painful choice to protect someone you love from someone you also love? I read every story, and I promise you, you are not alone.